Welcome to Not So Cool Kids Podcast, episode 46. We're going to title this one, Cards Are Hairy and Delicious. That's right. Because we have an industry and nerds guest today. I guess you could say he's a guest and a guest co-host because we don't have a co-host with us this evening. John Harris, who is the co-creator of Prolific Games. Basically, he's a board gaming fanatic who decided to throw his passion into creating a successful company with fellow dice slinger Bill Sininger.
That's correct. Yep, Bill Sininger. Yep, you got it.
Awesome. And you guys, so how did you guys meet, and what was the synergy between you guys?
We actually met probably 10 years before we started the company. I was in college working at Toys R Us, and I was actually just leaving when he started working the last couple of months while I was there. Then we didn't honestly have contact for 4 or 5 more years, but through mutual friends, we sort of stayed in touch, and we went to Gen Con. I think it was probably 2010, and he had this game called Flapjacks Sasquatches that was prototyped out, that wasn't published yet, and I playtested a little bit with him. Honestly, it was at its final stages, and it was a pretty amazing game. And so that's where he was like, I kind of want to publish this, and I didn't get in with him right away. He actually self-published the first edition all on his own, had it printed up in a little print shop, and was stuffing boxes. He had 1,000 copies made, so if there were 5 of the oak tree in there, he had to count out 5 oak trees 1,000 times, and then put it all together and stuff. Yeah, and stuff it into boxes and shrink wrap them all and do all that. And he was struggling to keep up with the demand. The local shops here in the Twin Cities, Minneapolis, St. Paul area, were selling them faster than he could keep up because he lives an hour outside of the cities. And that's when he contacted me and said, I can't keep doing this. Do you have any interest? And it sounded like a blast to me, go to shops, meet the owners, hang out with them, demo games, and so that's when I jumped in, and we went forward from there. But it's been a pretty cool ride.
So obviously, I mean, that's such a cool thing. I was checking out your guys' YouTube page, and it looks like you guys have an annual event where you do the big Flapjacks and Sasquatches like challenge or something, and we get this awesome belt.
Yeah, we actually have 2 championships. We're adding a 3rd this year at Gen Con. So if you're going to Gen Con, there's a Flapjacks and Sasquatches Cup of Joe Championship. There'll be a tournament and prizes. Our 2 big ones right now are the World Championships, which we hold at a little convention here called Con of the North every February, and it's a blast. The winner goes home with a giant flannel that says World Champion and the year on it. And then the one you're talking about is my favorite. It's called the Intercontinental Bacon Belt Championship. And honestly, we made it up just to mess with the reigning world champ. Because, once you got one title, you have to have more than one title going, right?
Oh, obviously, yeah.
And so that one comes with a giant belt with a golden frying pan and crossed bacons and a couple of golden axes on it. And this year we held it, the store that we hold it in, called the Source Comics and Games in Roseville, Minnesota, are phenomenal. And we had so much fun the last 2 years we did it. They said, we're going to go all out this year. And I said, that's fantastic. He says, what would you say if we bought some bacon for it? I'm like, that's great. How much bacon are you thinking? He said, we're going to buy 21 pounds. So they bought 21 pounds. Yeah, they bought 21 pounds. They had this giant grill in the back of the store. People were walking in from blocks away being like, I can smell bacon, right? They had this, and they cooked 350 pancakes and 21 pounds of bacon, and they just gave them out for free. And we had probably 60, 70 people, probably if you count all the people who just wandered in, probably closer to 100 people. There were 50 plus playing in the tournament. There were people just hanging out. And it was a big battle. It came down to the final 8 players, and it came down to just a few points away. And Joe Lima was the winner. He walked away with the belt this year. Whoever wins it has to promise to bring it back or leave it in our care, because it's a title that goes up every year. So it was. I
love it because nothing like brings people together like gaming, but bacon. I mean,
that's food,
great, marketing tool.
Well, it just was really, we loved it, and it fit the theme. So going back to that first edition that Bill published, it was selling enough, but we needed to get it into distribution. And to do that, we had to up the quality of the cards. The card quality was not where we needed it. So that was when we did our first Kickstarter and published the second edition, and we added the side of bacon expansion because flapjacks and bacon. So,
Right.
and so we added that in, and that's just sort of been a snowballing theme that we've had in all our games. There's bacon referenced in almost all of our games at this point. So it's been a lot of fun.
I love it, man. So,
Yeah.
okay, so Kickstarter. What's been the experience? The experience with Kickstarter. Have you guys found that it's been really successful?
Oh,
Hard to kind of navigate, or what's?
we got in within the first year of Kickstarter. We were the first year to first year and a half, and nobody really knew what we were doing. I don't think there hadn't been the big projects. But within year 2, I think they had their first $1 million project. They had their first $1 million in a day project. I mean, the numbers just started going up and up and up and up. And so we sort of stumbled through our first one. Probably made a lot of mistakes. Hopefully learned from them. And then did our second one, and that was for Hirelings The Ascent, and that one went pretty well. We reached our goal a little bit over. Again, made it through it. And then we're about to wrap up our third one. I literally got contacted today from the warehouse that there is a semi-truck headed towards my house, hopefully here tomorrow, to drop off a pallet and a half of games for our latest game called Tricked Out Hero that we're going to send out to backers over the next week, hopefully.
Wow.
And so we've done 3 of them
fun.
successfully. Yeah, it's been a blast. It's really neat to meet all the different people. It's amazing to see the support that comes out from you. It's a lot of work. You're battling some preconceived notions. People think you can just throw something up there and you get money. It's not like that at all. We've been successful in all 3, which is amazing. I think the success rate for games the last time I checked was about 37%. So it's a hard fight. And we've reached our goal plus a couple of $1,000, really, which basically helps us pay for the shipping of the games, and we pay for the games and the shipping of the games, and that's about where we're at. But we're happy with that. They're successful. We'd love one of the big ones that explodes and does double, triple, quadruple what you want for a goal. But right now we're happy just putting out our games consistently and being successful consistently with them. So.
Yeah, and take us through. So, what's Flapjacks and Sasquatches? What's the idea of it? What's the gameplay? I mean, the name alone just is like, what?
It stops people. Yeah, it literally stops people on a shelf. They walk past and stop and come back a few steps and look at it. It is an absolute stick-it-to-your-neighbor card game. It's vicious, downright, dirty stick-it-to-your-neighbor card game. You're playing lumberjacks in the Great White North, trying to chop down 21 victory points in trees. But of course, your neighbors are playing axe slips and blisters and foot slips and sicking Sasquatch mating season cards on you and all these other horrible things and axe breaks and stealing your equipment, and you're trying to defend yourself the whole time. You have cards that help defend yourself, and you're trying to get better things that help you, like flapjacks and short stacks and bacons. I'll give you bonuses to your die rolls, or bringing in an apprentice who can help you, but he can be lured away by a lure help card. So it's a back and forth. It plays on the box it says 8 players. We've gone up to 10 at conventions and just have to sort of shuffle the main deck. And it's usually really close. Like I said, that final table at the championship, there were, out of the 8, there were 4 people within 3 points of the 21 when the game finished. So it tends to be a pretty close battle because if someone starts to get out to a lead, everybody piles on them and drags them back down. It is a light, fast game. It's 20 to 30 minutes. It's not a brain-burning Euro. It's not that kind of game. I love those games, but Flapjacks just is not that game. It's just fun. It's definitely a beer and pretzel game, as they call them. So.
I love that. Have you ever thought about submitting it to? I don't know if you've seen the YouTube phenomenon, beer and board games, but.
No, I haven't.
Yeah, there's a YouTube phenomenon. It's by the guys who created Chad Vader, which is a popular YouTube series back in the day. Broken, I can't even remember what their names are. It escapes me right now. Sorry, guys. But we had them on the show, and they have this awesome show that they do, I think it's either a couple times a month or something like that, and it's called Beer and Board Games, and it's literally them sitting around playing a board game, and it's hilarious, and it's funny because they promote new games, And they
Okay.
also talk about really old, crappy games like Vanilla Ice's, Sing game or whatever, and they're
Right,
all
right.
playing it, and it's hilarious. I think they played like they played like a Star Wars VHS game where they had to stick
Oh,
in the
Escape from the
VHS.
Death Star. Yeah, I know that
Yeah,
game actually.
it's
Nice.
hilarious. They played it, but the thing is, because for copyright reasons, they redubbed like the entire VHS because the guy does Matt does an amazing Darth Vader, and he's
Chad
actually
Vader, right?
yeah, exactly. It was great. So maybe, hey, maybe you need to submit Flapjacks and Sasquatches and Hirelings The Ascent to them, and
Yeah, I was just
maybe
looking
they'll.
around for a pen. That's why if people saw me flailing my head, I was looking for a pen to write it down. I just wrote it down. So
Yeah, for
yeah,
sure, man. So check that out. But yeah, so okay, so that sounds like a really fun game, and it sounds like one you could play at a convention and really get a crowd like hyped up about it, you know?
we think so. We have a blast, and we've had a lot of fun with it. I know the one we've heard people tell us that they play it in line when they're waiting at conventions. They just sit down and play it because literally it's 20, 30 minutes, and you don't need a lot of space, and you're rolling dice and throwing cards on each other. And we have a blast. We run games at Gen Con all year, or all Thursday,
Yeah.
Friday, Saturday, all day. There's games running of it, and then if you come at 6 o'clock, you can play against Bill and crush the designer at his own game, which is always fun. And so people just have a blast doing it. They have a really good time playing it. So
And so Hirelings The Ascent, what sparked coming up with the number two game in
well,
your
honest,
utility belt?
so initially when we started talking about getting together to work, we said, we got to come up with other games, and we went over all of Bill's ideas. He's really the lead designer on everything.
Yeah.
And we bounce ideas back and forth. I would consider myself much more a publisher. I get some designing credit on most of these. It's mainly because we're going back and forth and we're bouncing ideas and suggestions. And I play more games than Bill. So I can say, like, well, how about this idea from this game? Or let's look at this. Or that's too similar to this. Let's move away from that. But Hirelings we designed Flapjacks, Hirelings The Ascent, and Tricked Out Hero were our first three because we came up with three designs, took them to Gen Con and tested them out, and people seemed to like them. Hirelings sprang from our hatred of most kids games, most if not all mass market kids games. So
Right.
your Candyland, Shoots and Ladders. There's one called a Ladybug game, which I'm sure is fantastic, but when I've played it, it's been awful. We both have small children,
Oh.
and we've played all these young kids games, and part of the problem is the Shoots and Ladders effect. You get almost to the end, and then you go back to the beginning almost, and they're repetitive, and they
Yeah.
don't end, and kids don't want to see who comes in first. They want everybody to finish the game, and you want to teach them that because, that's that attention span you want to expand on and do stuff like that. So
Absolutely.
we decided to come up with our own sort of version that paid homage to how geeky we are. So it's called Hirelings The Ascent, and you play the hirelings hired by the heroes to carry the backpacks and hold high the torches. And you did that. You followed them to the deepest, darkest pit of the dungeon, the Dragon's Lair, which is our start spot, and they got vaporized. And now you have a backpack full of stuff that you don't really know how to use. You're not even sure what's in there, and you have to get out of the dungeon as
No.
fast as you can. Because after a 4-turn head start, the dragon's going to launch a flaming fireball of doom that chases you out. So it's a lot of fun. It's geek humor with geek art. We added monsters that were monsters but not scary. We have like 10-foot
Yeah.
poles in there, and all sorts of stuff that geeks will find funny. But then we built
The
in.
art is phenomenal, by the way. Who
Yeah,
does
yeah.
the art for you?
His name is John Sauer. He's a freelance illustrator here in Minneapolis. He is amazing. His daughters go to school with mine, and it's been just fantastic working with him. We literally spent almost 2 years working on the art on that game and developing it and learning how to do Kickstarter and everything else. And the whole time he was just drawing stuff and doing stuff. And he's not a D&D player at all, and so it led to some pretty interesting moments, like the Goblin Polka Pit, which is on there, has these goblins and lederhosen and wingtip, and that came out of a wingtips because it came out of a phone call. He calls me up one day, just like out of the blue. He's like, "What do goblins wear?" And I'm like, "I'm playing D&D since I was 12. I don't know. rags, loincloths? And he's like, what about lederhosen and wingtips? I'm like, do they play polka? And he's like, oh, they do now. And he starts drawing out, And so what was the Goblin
I love
Kitchen?
it.
Yeah, what was the Goblin Kitchen became the Goblin Polka Pit. You know what I mean? And we just sort of pushing up the humor and doing stuff like that. But as far as gameplay, it's a roll and move track game, but we built in some simple decisions, right? You have longer paths with easier monsters, shorter paths with harder monsters. You have 8 items that represent your backpack. They can help you move faster or avoid the monsters, but they'll also save you from the fireball. So when the fireball catches up to you, you can throw off an unused item to stay one space ahead of it. You're lightening your load and running a little faster. So there's that sort of rationing what you have. There's different dice, 6-sided for movement, 8-sided for monsters. So we're teaching little things to kids, and there's no backwards movement on the board. Well, there's one spot of backwards movement. I shouldn't say that. That's the Sasquatch. We have a Sasquatch where if you don't get past our Sasquatch, you have to go back the 8 spaces the other way. But there's no chutes and ladders effect, and there's nothing that stops you. Like the monster stops you once, and it's too busy laughing at you to stop again. So you keep going. So it's 20 minutes because, well, there's a fireball behind you. You know what I mean? So you got to move. And so
it's like the Indiana Jones ball just rolling towards you. You gotta
exactly. Yep. You gotta keep moving. And we were a little nervous when we first did it because we were afraid kids, like literally, if the fireball catches you and you can't lighten your load, you're out of the game. And we thought player elimination, kids are gonna get upset. If they can be the fireball and chase down everybody else, they don't care. They're happy as could be.
Like, truthfully, my wife and I were talking about this. She's an educator, and I worked for a YMCA before and after school program recently. It's funny you actually mentioned Chutes and Ladders because I was just playing that probably like 3 weeks ago with a group of kindergartners, and I can tell you they were enthralled. I thought I was watching paint dry.
Yeah.
It was so difficult to get through. But anyways, we were just talking about how kids got to learn to lose sometimes.
Yeah. Absolutely. And that's not a skill every kid has. And in this one, when you lose, you still get to be the fireball. You still get to chase down the other players. So there's the whole concept of, yes, you lost, but did you have fun? And if the answer is yes, then it was a good game. Then that's what it's supposed to do. So we think it does a good job of that. It's been fun to put it out there. The coolest thing for me about Hirelings was we were at GaryCon, which is a little gaming convention in Lake Geneva, Wisconsin, celebrating Gary Gygax, his life and gaming and everything else. And we were there, and this 9-year-old came down with his own money, and him and his dad paid for the game and said, we played it up in the board game hall. I want my own copy. He took it and he hugged it to his chest and he walked out with it. And then the next day, the dad comes down and says he was up in that board game hall the rest of the evening teaching other people how to play that game. And that was
man,
how much win is that, right? I mean, it was just really cool.
Is like that is epic. I mean, what more do you need at that point, right?
Well,
you basically the masses have spoken when there's a kid literally teaching other kids how to do it.
Yeah.
Oh,
so that was really cool. That was really cool for us. So Hirelings has been a blast so far. You know what I mean? And we hope it keeps going. So.
Yeah. Now, are you strictly a tabletop gamer, or do you play video games? What's your persuasion? What?
I would love to play more video games. But between family, kids, and my board gaming habit, to look at my wife and say, no, I'm going to go play a video game for 3 hours, doesn't work. I do play a little bit of World of Tanks on the Xbox now that it's on the Xbox. And we'll get the Lego videos that the kids can play with us, the superhero ones, so we'll play those on the Xbox. So I do a little of that, but I would love to. I just don't have the time to play the video game.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it really came down to which
basically,
one
second in command in this flagship of amazing board games. So what do you got? I mean, what could you do?
Yeah. And to be honest, I would love to play more video games. Before I was married, I played a lot more video games and probably less board games, honestly. But that was 10, 12 years ago now. So, yeah.
Yeah. Well,
but I appreciate them. Does that help?
Absolutely, especially the old school ones. I mean, there's this place that opened up a couple towns from us here in the suburban area of Detroit, and basically it's called the arcade, and it's basically an arcade bar, which is great.
Nice.
You know,
Nice.
you get to play the old school games and just throw back a brew. It's pretty fun. So
a lot of the old retro games in there then, or?
yeah, retro games, a lot of pinball games, because the guy who actually owns it even runs like the big pinball expo that comes to town every year. So it's really, and those guys are phenomenal. They're literally artists, because the backs of those pinball machines, that's all art. I mean, that they create that. So it's just phenomenal to me.
Well, and what pinball machines look like now with the multi-ball and everything else, you know, when I was growing up, there were pinball machines everywhere, but there were some that started to get that elaborate, but now they're so elaborate, it's really cool. We were out eating pizza at a place, and we walked to the back of it, and there was a pinball machine. So my kids had never played. They're 10 and 8 now, and had never played pinball. And I'm like, we're going to play. And it was a Lord of the Rings pinball machine, so we were just eating it up, and it was really cool. So, they wanted to get one for the house, and I'm like, yeah, they're a little expensive.
Right. Yeah, you got to go to college first, and then we'll look into it.
Let's see if we can download something on the Xbox with a pinball, you know?
Awesome. So let's talk about the gaming industry as a whole, but I want to end with the interview with talking about your newest game. But
sure.
Just let's talk about the gaming industry as a whole. Like, what are in your opinion, top 5 tabletop games out there right now that you're playing? You know, obviously you're kind of proficient in this category. What are games out there that you love that aren't just your games, but ones that you would recommend to others?
If you're into deck building games, my absolute favorite right now is from Cryptozoic Games is the DC Deck Builder. There's 2 base sets. The base one is just called DC Deck Builder. The next one's called Heroes Unite. If you're familiar with Ascension, it plays very similar to that, except I love the artwork in the DC. It's fast, it's fun. You get to be different heroes. I absolutely love it. I love Lords of Waterdeep, which has been out for about 2 years now, which is a D&D themed Euro game. It's about an hour, but there are so many multiple paths to victories, and it's just a blast. We play the heck out of that one. If you like co-ops, I'm a big fan of Battlestar Galactica, because it's just dripping with theme, you know, and halfway through the game, everyone's absolutely certain everyone else is a Cylon. I eat up that paranoia and mistrust. I don't know what it is. Let's see, that's 3. You want actually 5? I can keep going. Kingsburg, which is a game made by Fantasy Flight Games. I think they're publishing it through somebody else. I really, really love it. It's a worker placement game, but you're rolling dice, 3d6.
What's it called again?
Kingsburg.
Okay.
And it's fantastic. So your workers that you're placing, there's a board that has numbers from 1 to 18. Everybody rolls 3d6, and you can use those 3d6 in any combination, 1, 2, or 3 dice, to place them on a number. So if you rolled a 5 and a 6 and a 4, you can go for the 11 and the 4, right? But other people are filling in behind you. So you got to make sure you can work out how much you can get their dice, and then you collect resources for that. It's got dice rolling and complete Euro style game. I absolutely love it. It's made even better by the expansion. That makes it an even better game, I think. I really, really like that. Let's see, what else do I really love lately? We've been playing...
It's one that your kids really like, that your kids get into.
DC Deck Builder. I already said it, I know. Yeah, the DC Deck Builder. We play the heck out of that thing. My 8-year-old crushes people at it. Just, if she can be Wonder Woman or Black Canary, you have to look out. She is just a phenom at it, and it's kind of scary. We literally, the best part I had was we literally were playing a game. It was down to her and I, and we were playing the 2-hero version. Sometimes you can play with 2 heroes, which tends to get sort of crazy, ridiculous combos, and the scores get really high. And I had one hand where I laid down more power than I'd ever laid down in a game before. I think I laid down like 72 points. Now, your average turn is somewhere in the 4 to 18 range at the best, you know, but we're playing 2 heroes, so that doubles it and all this other factors. And so I thought, I'm walking away with this game. I'm completely walking away with this game. And we're counting the points at the end of the game, and I get done, and I wait for her to finish counting her points, And she says, how'd you do today? I said, I did really good. I had that really good turn. I'm doing really good. You know, I came in at 82 points, kiddo. And she goes, I think you should count mine, Dad. And I'm like, why? And she's like, just count them. Because she doesn't trust her numbers, right? And so I counted, and she's got 92 points. She beat me. And I was like, what? And that's just the way, like you play against her, and you cannot believe how the cards drop and how things are going, and she finds the synergies, and it's just a blast to play. And my older daughter, who's 10, has loved Superman since she was a year and a half. So all the DC heroes, so all the DC heroes, the kids absolutely love that one. The other one they really like is Zularetto. Again, that's a game that's been out for a long time, where you're trying to build up your zoo. You're collecting animals, and you're trying to build up your zoo, and you're trading tiles. That one's really fun. Just picked up, I'm going on to 6, sorry, just picked up another little deck builder. I hate to keep going on these, but we've been playing a lot of them, called Star Realms. It's by the same guy who worked on Ascension. His last name's Doherty. I can't remember his first name. And it's just 2 players. It comes in a small, like a double deck box, and it's 2 players, space themed, beautiful art. Again, 15 to 20 minutes, and you could, if you add more of the $15 games, you can play 2-player, 3-player, 4-player, etc. And just picked up that at Origins. That one's going to be hard to find, I think. It sounds like the first printing was sold out, except for what they had at Origins, and the second printing sold out at distribution. So if you see it in a store, buy it, because it'll be a while before the third printing rolls around. That's a fun one too.
Awesome. Yeah, so that's a great top 6. What do you think is kind of this resurgence of game night and kind of like getting the family involved? And it seemed like in the the 90s and even the early 2000s, kids were kind of getting into their cell phones, their getting into video gaming and kind of like doing their own thing. And then kind of what happened was, it seems like nerd culture kind of gotten popular is like an okay thing, and it seems like game night has kind of resurfaced. What do you think has really brought about that?
Well, I think there's 2 things. One, you already mentioned. People are getting more and more into their cell phones, more and more into the mobile Game Boys, and I know that's an old school one, but you know what I mean. They kept progressing to the little personal players. More of this, right, where your focus is here, not here, out at the world, and just more and more and more of that. At the same time, though, if you start talking the early 90s, that's sort of when Settlers of Catan and Carcassonne and stuff like that. Mid 90s, that's when it starts coming into the U.S. And you add 10 years to that, mid 2000s, and those games are now popular. Then you add Kickstarter, and there's more and more games. You throw in superhero movies having become insanely popular, making geek culture popular. Video games having become insanely popular. World of Warcraft making fantasy insanely popular. I mean, that's
conventioning popular. Conventions, right?
Absolutely. San Diego Comic-Con, all the Comic-Cons, they make being a geek cool, and it sort of has this perfect storm that's led to an amazing time to be a geek. It's fantastic. And I think because of all the focus down here, it's kind of a novelty to have the game where you have to sit across the table from someone and you have to talk to them, you have to interact, and if you don't, they're not going to trade resources with you, and if you don't, they're going to start hammering you with blisters and Sasquatches. I mean, you kind of have to interact with people, and it's weird, but it's coming back into being popular. And
it's amazing. Like, I think in the last 2 years, every New Year's Eve, my family gets together and we play board games, and it's become like a thing now. Like, whereas we haven't done that for years. I mean, when I was a kid, we did it a little bit, and then like I said, kind of pop culture kind of took over, and we all went in our separate directions. Even people weren't even eating dinner together.
No. Yeah.
Now it's like all of a sudden there's this resurgence of, hey, let's play a board game or a card game or a, it's insane. It's great.
Yeah.
And it's got to be good for you guys.
Oh, we're pretty happy with it. Although the market has expanded. I think with the success of Kickstarter, it was never easy to get recognition of a small independent game company. That was the danger of being a small guy. Is obscurity kills you. Nobody's heard it. Nobody's heard of Flapjacks and Sasquatches. It doesn't matter how good a game it is. Nobody's heard of it. You know what I mean? So getting your name out there was the hard part initially, and then now what it's become is getting your name out there and rising above all the other fantastic games that are out there. At least getting people to know your game when there's so many games demanding their attention. I mean, you can walk into any game store and there are I gotta say triple to quadruple the number of board games there were 10 years ago. And I directly attribute it to Kickstarter, because you can't walk in there now and pick up the back of the box. It used to be for Kickstarter, you pick up the back of the box and you go, oh yeah, that's from that company. You knew all the major companies, and there might be one or two independents, but now there's a new company every time you turn around. It's fantastic, but standing out from that is harder and harder. And I think that will be the challenge for any small game company.
We've got a great small, independently owned, old-fashioned toy store here in a place called downtown Plymouth, right down the road. And I tell you what, they have a fantastic just wall of board games, and it's just like anything you could think of, card games, like deck building games, strategy. It's insane. And my wife and I, we're adamant board game fanatics. We literally have, you could walk around our house and just open up a door and there's just stack of games. And everyone knows us as the game people because we're the ones always going, hey, you guys want to have a game night? And it's like, even in our wedding video, they were harassing us about, these guys always want to play board game, but it's fun. It's it's changed the dynamic of interaction to going, like you said, off of this and back into, hey, let's interact,
Yep, absolutely.
It's fantastic.
We actually had a couple. Sorry, I just want to say we actually had a couple that sent us that we met at Dragon Con, but before we met them, the first year at Dragon Con, we were down there. They sent us the things thanking us because they had played Flapjacks and Sasquatches at their wedding rehearsal dinner. And that was just pretty awesome, too.
Dude, I mean, how amazing is that? Those little stories have got to make you, feel fantastic.
Absolutely. That, and so we've been going to Gen Con for a number of years, running stuff in the board game hall. Starting last year, we actually started working with one of the booths, and they have repped for us now. We run games in their booth. Actually at Gen Con, Dragon Con, San Diego, and Origins. And now it's to the point where we have people who are coming back every year to say hi. They're literally friends. You know what I mean? You make good friends. And to have people come up or to say, that's an awesome game. I love playing that. Or my buddies play that all the time. It's amazing. It's absolutely amazing. It's really cool. So,
in the last convention I went to, Midwest Media Expo, which is here in Detroit, they had an amazing giant banquet hall filled area of tables and tabletop gaming. And the great thing about it was there was no age or specific age or gender it was varied. I mean, it was all the way from little kids to grandpa's playing,
Right. Oh yeah, absolutely.
It's so cool,
Yeah.
I mean, do you find that kind of makes it more difficult as a game designer to try to find something that appeases all of the age groups and categories?
Well, in general, I don't think you're ever going to please everybody. There's absolutely no way any game you design will make any game you design. There are going to be people who love it, and there are going to be people who hate it, who absolutely hate it. If you don't like a lot of randomness in your games, if you like your straight Euros with very little randomness, you're going to hate Flapjacks and Sasquatches because there's card draws and there's dice rolling. So there's 2 factors of randomness in there. That's okay. That's great. I love Agricola. I love all the heavy Euros. I play them too, but I also love Flapjacks. You know what I mean? So to me, it's been said I'm a gamer. When it comes to games, I'm a gamer with loose morals. I'll play anything with anybody. You know what I mean? So I love all games. They're
Equal
very, very.
opportunity gamer.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. You got a game, you want me to learn it, I'll play it with you. That's great. Whatever, I'll have fun with whatever game I'm playing. But you're never going to design a game that people are going to like. What I think you have to do is have clear goals in mind what you want the game to do. While designing games. Well, for instance, Hirelings The Ascent. When we initially started it, a fireball launched every 4 turns. There were secret doors you could hide in so that you could get behind it. There were magic items that let you get over top of the fireballs, and it was really neat. It was super elaborate, and it was not a family game. It was not the game we wanted it to be. So we had to go through a bunch of play tests and scale it back and take things off and change things and make it different. And we're really happy with the end result. But you have to have that at the end of the development. You have to have a concise goal for the game. Is this supposed to be light and fast? Is it supposed to be a heavy Euro? Is it supposed to be a light Euro and fast? Do we want it to play within an hour? Do we want it to be a 20, 30-minute game? Or can it be a 3-hour game?
Right.
Because different people want different things out of their games, and as long as you're presenting a game that you love and are passionate about, I think you probably do well. So.
Yeah, and so like that kind of leads me to my next question. There's this new insurgence of adult-themed games. You got kind of like the Apples. Yeah, Cards Against Humanity, which is like, I guess, the Apples to Apples gone wrong. The apples have rotted, and here's the game that for people who just want to laugh and just kind of have an adult moment, which is completely popular, obviously. What do you think about? It's kind of like what's happening with graphic novels, and comic books. It started out as a medium where mostly kids and soldiers overseas that were fighting wars were reading,
Right.
And then what happened is pretty much like, it became an adult thing where nowadays you got these really dark characters and dark backstories and stuff like that. So now you've got this happening in gaming, and even in video games, but also on board games. Yeah. What do you think about that, and is there a place for that?
I think there's absolutely a place for that. I think it's brilliant. I think it's fantastic. I think what it means is as a consumer, you have to be more educated about what you're buying, what you're getting into. But I think that's a responsibility every parent should have. As a parent, I don't buy video games for my kids that I either don't know what's going on in them, or I haven't played myself. You know what I mean? That's just not the way it's going to happen in this house. Books. My wife and I read a ton of teen or young adult and teen fiction because, well, we want to know what our kids are reading. You know what I mean? That's just the way it is.
Absolutely.
Same thing with games. Cards Against Humanity is insanely huge, but I do know game stores that won't carry it because they're family friendly. And they don't want to have to explain it to kids and stuff. Hey, that's the game store's choice. You know what I mean? That's sort of the balance you have to strike. I think it's perfectly. Comic books are the same thing. Like, I know there are great comic book stores that are inclusive, and they have sections for kids more, and they have sections more for adults. And I've also been in comic stores where they're kind of like, it's almost like bad comic book guys. They're like, oh, don't let the children touch the comics. You know what I mean? And you got to kind of find that middle. You can't, because kids are going to be the next generation doing it. If we don't get them into it now, and if they don't like it, they don't game now, they're not going to continue when they're adults. You know what I mean? It's sort of bringing up the next generation right, in my opinion.
Absolutely. We're trading them to get involved in gaming too, because I mean, you guys are a perfect example. I mean, here's somebody who Bill creates this awesome game and just says, hey, I want other people to enjoy this too, and kind of it becomes something more than he can handle, pulls you on board, and you're like, yeah, I love this, let's do it, and these are two guys from one part of the country. Like, how many other John and Bill are out there team ups, creating games. I mean, it's got to be amazing to be in this time period in gaming. I mean, you've got to feel like kind of like I wouldn't go as far as to say you're like the founding fathers, but it seems like it's becoming like the new thing,
Yeah. Yeah. I missed that last little part. You kind of broke up. Sorry.
Oh no, it's okay.
It's got to be kind of like.
I was saying, you guys are kind of like the I guess you could say the new settlers in this gaming community, and the fact that there's so many like settlers like occupying the territory, it's becoming not a bad thing, because what it's becoming is making people think about creating their games a little bit better and making it more competitive. And I think it's like anything else, the more demand and the more popularity that you get in all these gamings, it's going to create companies like yours and other companies to kind of just go, man, we got to step it up with this next one. We got to blow the roof off with, so is that what you guys feel like?
Absolutely. The explosion of games is, like you were saying, it's good. Overall, it's good. It's absolutely good. Does it mean we have to work harder? Yeah. Does it mean, we have to try and make our game stand out more, or get it out to more people and try and contact them in more ways? Yeah. But I'm okay with that. That's okay. You know what I mean? And the interesting thing to me is I've yet to meet anybody else who's doing this, who are small people like us, and we talk to a lot of them, that aren't usually fantastic people and aren't willing to help you if you help them. You know what I mean? We're all know what it's like. We all know how hard it is, and if you reach out to these guys or they reach out to you, I've probably helped or talked to, I guess, it's up to them to judge whether or not I helped, but I've talked with dozens of people, probably closer to 20-some, about what it's like to run a Kickstarter, what you have to do, what you have to be aware of, what you have to be, what you have to look out for. I've had conversations, all the people from all over. We just get emails saying, hey, I got this idea. What do you think of it? And I try as much as I can to give back to that, because maybe one day they got the biggest game in the world and they can turn around and, just tweet about us or do something like that. You know what I mean? And it's such a good collaborative group of people that are just want to see each other succeed, that I think it's pretty good. I think it's been amazing, even with this crowd.
Have you tried to get on Will Wheaton's YouTube?
Honestly, yes, of course we have. Everyone would love to be on Tabletop. I do know that his producers have seen our games. That's the most I know. Whether or not they liked them or anything like that. I know Will Wheaton's actually aware of Flapjacks and Sasquatches, because he, when we were running our Kickstarter, he tweeted, "Check out this cool game," and we used it. And that was before Tabletop. Like I said, this was quite a few years ago at this point now. But he was still big on Twitter, and Twitter was new, but he was still big. We jumped $3,000 in like 4 hours from that, of our goal of $10,000. So in some ways, you could literally say Will Wheaton is directly responsible for Flapjacks and Sasquatches. I don't think it's overstating it, because he really pushed us up and got us momentum when we really could use it. So, would be on Tabletop would be amazing. If it happens, great. If it doesn't, we're going to keep slugging away the way we do, So.
Well, it sounds like that would be Flapjacks and Sasquatch. It sounds like the perfect game for that show. Because
I think so.
I'm just saying because if it's like a stab, the guy next to you in the knee type game where you're just trying to stick it to everyone, I mean that's the perfect game for that show. I mean, So we're just saying, Will Wheaton. You got to play that.
play Flapjacks. Yeah, you created it practically. You should play it. Or help create
Absolutely.
it.
Okay, so let's talk about the future of prolific games. What direction are you guys heading? You've got a new game that you've kickstarted. what direction are you guys heading in? And then, of course, what is the new game that you created?
Well, the new game is called Tricked Out Hero. It
Mm-hmm.
uses a trick-taking mechanic like hearts, spades, or euchre, if you're familiar with those, like a standard card
Yeah.
trick-taking mechanic. Except those power up your hero. So if you take a trick with what's called melee suit in ours, clubs, you gain melee power. If you take a trick with diamonds, which is magic in ours, we have it all symboled out for our system. You gain magic. Hearts give you health, and spades or monster tricks power up the monsters. And you each have a different archetype hero, like a ranger, or fighter, or ranger, barbarian, mage, cleric, that have different abilities that affect the trump-taking part of the game. And then at the end of the hand, you collect your points, you reveal a monster, and you battle the monster. They have melee target and a magic target number. If you slay them, you gain gold for them, and if you fail, they take out some of your health, and you play through a number of rounds, go deeper in the dungeon, through 3 levels of the dungeon, and at the end, the person with the most gold is the winner. So it takes a very traditional style of card play and completely turns it on its head, turns it into a fancy monster slaying game, and we think it's an absolute blast. The artist for it, his name is Ryan Johnson. He does a lot of work for Board Game Geek. He's actually an admin at Board Game Geek. He worked on Dungeon Roll, if you're familiar with that little game. That was mostly
Wow.
his art. And he just knocked it out of the park. It's absolutely a gorgeous game. And I can't wait to get my hands on a copy. I'm just literally they're on a truck headed this way, and I'm super pumped for it. Super pumped to send it out to the backers. That's always like a great feeling because you get all these happy emails and showed up.
Oh yeah.
And that's fantastic. And then we're gonna have it for San Diego, so we're gonna get to start showing it to people at San Diego Comic-Con. And then this year at Gen Con, we developed it, like I said, almost 4 years ago. We started bringing it to Gen Con, and we have a group of guys we call the Lynch Mob. They're from the New York or New Jersey area. But they're all spread out.
Yeah.
They come together every year to play games at Gen Con. And they have tracked us down for 3 years going, where's my tricked out hero? I want my tricked out hero, And finally we can say, you have it. Here you go. And it's going to be just a blast. So that's coming out really soon. We think it's going to do pretty well. After that, we're doing an expansion for Flapjacks and Sasquatches called the Cup of Joe that will have 8 custom dice because we did custom dice for the Kickstarter, and they were very popular. But they were an add-on, and we only did 500 dice. So, and we were selling them in sets of 5. So only 100 sets were made, and people just love them and have been asking for them ever since. But we wanted to make it so that we had enough product around it that it was worth doing because custom dice are expensive. So we're going to have 8 custom dice. There's going to be 5 for the Lumberjacks, 2 for Babe the Blue Ox, and 1 for Little Timber Timmy the Apprentice. There's going to be new trees in there, like the petrified tree, which takes more chops than it's worth victory points. You give that to somebody else. There's weeping willow trees that have surrounded by poison ivy, so they harm the other guys that when you draw them. And we're calling universal cards. So when a tree gets chopped down, you flip a new universal card, and it'll say something like taxes due. Everybody has to show their paperwork or lose their turn. Or the meek shall inherit the camp. Everybody turns in their equipment, and you draft it back from the lowest point standing. Or there are a whole bunch of other universal cards that affect the gameplay. What are you feeding that boy? Your apprentices. You can play food cards on your apprentices. Things like that change up the gameplay quite a bit. And hopefully we're going to run the Kickstarter for that. I want to do it tomorrow, but we got to deliver the awards from Tricked Out Hero, and then probably sometime in July, depending upon how we manage to get it either before Comic-Con or after Comic-Con. We're going to run a Kickstarter for that. And hopefully all the Flapjacks fanatics are really excited for it too. And then after that, we've got a whole bunch of games lined up. I was actually putting together, I don't know if you can see this, these are playtesting tools. We're building little custom dice for a game called Tank, in which you play the tank of a party, like from thinking World of Warcraft tank, right? Heavily armored, absorb a lot of damage, attack.
Right.
Who all the cloth people, the mage, the cleric, and the archer. The mage is out of spells, the cleric can't heal anybody anymore, and the archer's down to 1 arrow. And you have to get them out of the dungeon and survive the monsters coming at you. Mainly so by the end of it you can kill them yourself because you're sick of them not appreciating you, and now you've got to do all the work. So it's called Tank. We set up a number of slots for it at Gen Con, and they all sold out. We set up, I think it was 5 slots a day at Gen Con at 4 players a day, and they all sold out except for 1 ticket the first day. So we think it's going to do well. We're mocking it up. It'll be a playtest version there. We've got the rules, I think 95%, a few tweaks we want to do, but that one should be ready. If we can get it ready in time, we'll do another Kickstarter this year. If not, we'll do it in the spring of next year. We have a game in the works called Caravan the Looting, where you're the evil overlords and you're competing to raise the most prestige. So each season you go out and you recruit new monsters to raid the caravans that are coming through your mountain passes. So you're trying. It's an auction game where you're trying to collect sets of different. You know, the more kobolds you get, the better they are. Or maybe you just want one giant and some undead. You know, and you're raiding the caravans and you're having an auction to recruit these guys, spending your prestige.
I like it. It's really like anti-hero game, you know.
Yeah.
Where...
Outside of Two-Down Hero, we kind of figured out we're doing a lot of games where you're not really the hero, or if you are the hero, like in Tank,
which is fine because in pop culture that's like blowing up right now. The anti-hero.
Well, and in Tank, you're the hero, but you're in a bad situation. It's not good. It's not where you get to be the heroic hero. It's the holy, crap, we're all gonna die. It's oh man, we're all gonna die. It's that moment right there. That's what's happening in the Tank game, and we're really kind of excited for it. So. And then,
that's awesome.
Beyond that, we probably have, like every person who designs games, ideas are easy to come by. Getting them fully fleshed out, that's the hard part. So we have dozens and dozens of other games we'd really, really, really like to be working on. But, yeah, we're got a lot of games we're going to do. Hopefully we'll live up to our name and be prolific,
Well, what we try to do is on our website we try to feature at least one Kickstarter. Every once in a while when that one ends, we try to feature another one on our website. So when you guys have another one popping up, just let us know. We'll throw it up on the website.
Absolutely we will. That'll be fantastic.
Yeah. So John, thank you so much, man. I mean, hearing this independent spirit of someone creating this amazing, thing that you can actually play with your family and get involved and share joy. I mean, it's gotta be wonderful. You're getting, essentially you're having a job that you love, and that's gotta be amazing.
It's fantastic. It's kind of fun when I'm like, the kids look at me and like, where are you going? I'm like, I'm headed down to Tower Games or the Source Comics and Games. Like, what are you going there for? I'm like, I gotta work.
Yeah.
My eldest daughter, this was a few years ago, I was first demoing. We were running the Kickstarter for Hirelings. I was demoing at a game store, and she looked at me and she's like, that's not work, Dad. I'm like, yeah, it is. It kind of is. So just because you love it doesn't mean it can't be your work, too,
That's right. And I think more people should kind of get that entrepreneurial spirit because like what's that old saying, if you love what you do, you're never going to work a day in your life or something like that.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Here you guys are. You get to go to all these amazing conventions, meet these amazing people, and get to talk about something that you've created. And Bill, I'm so sad we didn't get to get Bill on, but maybe next time you guys have something, you can come back and we'll talk about some other games that you got going on.
Absolutely. Yeah, he was actually upset he couldn't make it. So.
Oh, that's too bad. That's okay. We'll have him on in the future. So we'll move on to kind of like past the interview portion of the show. But thank you so much, and thank you for what you do in Prolific Games. Thank you for what Bill does. It's amazing. I mean, the art, the gameplay, it's top notch, and I think you guys are going nowhere but up. So.
Thank you.
It's awesome.
I appreciate being on, honestly, and it's been a good time. It's great. This is what I love about this job is I get to sit here and talk games and geek stuff with other people.
Yeah, man.
It's fantastic. It's fantastic. I love doing it. So thank you for having me on.
Yeah, absolutely. And one thing we do on our show, we do Collector's Corner. We talked a little bit about this before we went on. But it's kind of like Nerdy Show and Tell for anyone who's tuning in for the first time. And this week you brought something. So
I did.
Let's see what you got.
I'm going to readjust my camera here a little bit. Let's see if I can get it so that we can get it in there. We'll try. Here, the first thing I brought was an old AD&D book, first edition, as far as I'm concerned, the only edition. Wow. Deities and Demigods. Are you familiar with the history of this item?
No.
So this item, this was a book that had all of the mythos in it. So it had Norse myth gods and Egyptian and all these other mythos in it. deities and demigods of all the mythos, right, and the Greeks and everything.
Right.
But the edition I have has something a little special about it too. It's the first printing, the very first printing, which was I think 78 or 79. I got to double check here.
Wow.
And 1980. And one of the things that TSR did at the time was they went ahead and they put the Cthulhu mythos in there, and a set of mythos called the Melborian mythos, which was from a series of books by an author named Michael Moorcock, the Elric Saga books.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, they didn't have permission to use either of those things, Cthulhu or the Melborian mythos. So they had to pull all these books from all these mythos from all the other editions. So there's only the first printing has those two in there, and I managed to find one at a little game shop. It was fantastic. I got it for a decent price. The guy who ran the game shop was like, "Yeah, go ahead, you know." I'm never going to sell it.
Did he know about it? Did he know about that misprint?
Yeah,
or?
Yeah, he did. He did, and he was, you know, he knew who I was too. So I'd been going in there for years, and
Yeah.
honestly, I bought it for me. I'm going to have it. One of my kids is going to get it. I'm never going to sell it. And it's part of the geek history that I love. I love the old school role playing stuff. I came in, you know, early to mid 80s and missed that initial rise of stuff. But over the course of my life, I've gotten to meet. I met Gary Gygax very briefly. I met Dave Arneson, the co-creator of D&D, and his family. I've met Luke Gygax. I've met probably 6 or 7 people who played in Dave Arneson's very first campaign. I've, in fact, gamed with 4 of them. One of them role-playing, the rest of them other games, and game regularly on a weekly basis with one of them still. And so that history part of it to me is... They really are. It's kind of cool. So I kind of geek out about it all the time and ask for stories and you know, hear great stories about the very first evil wizard in a game and all sorts of other stuff. So it's been really cool for me. That's awesome, one of my lucky things. So
that's a great share. Thank you so much for sharing that with us.
Absolutely.
That's what this show is all about, because you learn about new things too, just like that. Like, you know, we had this one guy on one time. He had like a vintage video game that was like pulled from shelves, just like you said, you know, like pulled from shelves.
Was it the E.T. video game?
No, it wasn't E.T. It was Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Oh! Yeah.
He said it was too violent for that time period, which if you watch the game, it's because I've gone back since and like had to go on YouTube to find what it looks like. It's like, this is too violent. You got to be kidding me.
Well, look at this. Yeah. Alice's hip shaking was not considered too suggestive. You know what I mean? Standards change. So. Yeah,
absolutely. So. I brought something this week. I collect autographs. I do fan mail. It's a total geek hobby. I would never sell anything I ever get because it's just so much fun. But occasionally I go to a convention and meet really cool guests that they have there, and one of which I went to Motor City Comic Con this year, and one of my all-time Disney favorite films is Nightmare Before Christmas. Because the villain right here, Oogie Boogie, and Ken Page does the voice of Oogie Boogie, and I swear, I interviewed this guy, and we've got to post this interview still from Motor City Comic Con, but his voice is just like Oogie Boogie. I'm like, man, it's so cool. I'm like talking to Oogie Boogie in person, and he's like you said, you just geek out, and you're like, man, that is. Because the film, to me, is like by far one of the best films as far as Disney villains concerned, which I love Disney villains.
Right.
Frozen. Yeah, thank you for not providing us a villain, Frozen. Right? I mean, you can't have the good guy be the villain. That's not cool.
Maybe the parents were the villains for the way they set her up to be terrified of having superpowers. That's just my thoughts on it.
Oh, dude, I totally agree with you. That whole movie is about like don't actually have any feelings.
Yeah.
Don't have any emotions. Hold everything inside so you have mental illness later on in life. It's like, what?
I hate to go on a tangent here, but I think that happens more and more with female superheroes. I'd love to see, or superpowered characters. I obviously she's not a superhero.
Yeah.
I can't think of any examples where the hero gets the power and he's like, oh, I have to be terrified of this power. I don't know what to do. I have to hold it inside and not use it. Guys get the superpower and they're like, woo! Girls get it in there and they do that. I would love to see like a girl who embraces her powers, because I have daughters, and my 10-year-old would go nuts if she got superpowers. She would be like the happiest person in the universe, and she wouldn't care what it was. That would be the most amazing thing to her. So yeah,
Supergirl starts out that way. Like Supergirl, she starts out, she kind of likes her powers, but then she like gets jealous of Kal-El for the fact that he grew up on Earth and he has like, you know, a family. And, yeah, so she automatically like turns into this like, she's got a problem, she's got issues, and I'm like, you're right. There's really no characters that are like, you know, let me just have fun with this, you know, besides like Powderpuff Girls.
yeah. I don't know. That was the thing that bugged me most about Frozen. I was like, come on, you have ice powers, you know.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, maybe you'll have to make a game where there's just all female super heroines. That'd be amazing. And probably very profitable.
Possibly. We got into a lot of trouble we get a lot of smack for the fact that in Flapjacks and Sasquatches, the person with the most facial hair gets to go first. For some reason, that upsets. I
love it, man.
That tends to upset our female players a little bit, but you know.
Well,
what are you gonna do?
You just gotta grow a beard. That's all. I mean.
Yeah, the ones who get to go first are not happy about it. I can tell you that much.
I bet. Well, that was Collector's Corner this week, and it was a lot of fun. I love hearing that story, man, and finding that book. You must have been like, oh, this is the Holy Grail.
It was pretty cool. It was pretty cool. I have a lot of different first edition AD&D stuff that I still love, and it's the artwork and the memories it brings back, and how amazing that was. I mean, really, because that was how I discovered games other than your mainstream Monopoly, Risk, stuff like that, was Dungeons and Dragons, and I went, what, you can do this in a game? And it was just amazing and addictive and fantastic, and has been such a really cool thing in my life, that being able to go back and find that stuff from when I was a kid that I honestly that I couldn't afford when I was a kid, and be able to get it has been pretty amazing. So yeah. Okay,
well, I don't know if you're into movies, but there's a big movie coming out this weekend, Transformers 4, Age of Extinction. We're just going to kind of rap about what you think about it. There's Dinobots in it. It's the Michael Bay movie that doesn't apparently have Michael Bay spearheading this one, but I mean, from what I've heard from the reviews, it's all Michael Bay type film where it's pretty much like all action, very little story, which I think is not a fair statement, because after reading the synopsis on IMDb, I was like, this sounds like a really cool story,
Okay. Yeah.
I don't know. I always digress to leave my opinions, because I've liked most of the Transformers films, and not because they're all action, but because it's Transformers, and even though it's not exactly what I was looking for, it's what I'm saying? It's
I know what you're saying. It was that. Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know. I'm looking forward to seeing it, and I'll probably give my review on it next the next podcast.
Nice. I have not really followed the Transformers movies. I've watched them. They're part of the problem is I grew up in a little town, very small town in Northwest Iowa, and I didn't have cable growing up. And Transformers were only shown on, I think it was WGN at the time, in my hometown. So I didn't watch them. I had a friend who watched them, and he loved them so much. He statted out. He was the initial game designer in my life. He statted out all the Transformers, and we cut out little pieces of paper, wrote Bumblebee and Optimus Prime on them, and then all the Decepticons, and we had a battle game that we played on my carpet. You could move so many inches. Bumblebee got to roll 2 6-siders for movement, whereas everybody else only got to roll 1 because he was faster. And we had little.
That's where it all began, man.
It was literally we played Transformers battle game, and that's where I knew all them all from. Because I didn't watch the cartoons, so
yeah.
The movies were good. They were okay. I was more into the superhero movies, I guess. So
yeah,
you're
blowing me away with the WGN. Were you a big Bozo the Clown?
I didn't have cable. I couldn't watch it.
That's right. You said
he got to watch it. That's where he watched it was Bozo. He would get up early to watch Bozo because they showed little shorts of that. And what was the other one they used to show at the time? It was G.I. Joe. That's where the only spot where you could see G.I. Joe and Transformers. But it was on at 6, 7 in the morning or something like that. Yeah. And so he watched it all the time. And so like when I'd sleep over at his house every once in a while, I'd get to watch it. But that was about it. I never saw him growing up.
It's funny you say that you didn't have cable back then, but I don't have cable now. You know what? I had cable, and then I found it to be so distracting. I was watching like 12 shows.
Yep.
And I was like setting my DVR to like record shows that I would have to catch up on, and I was like, this is exhausting. I'm like, I'm gonna watch The Walking Dead, and I'm gonna watch Game of Thrones, and I'm gonna have to stream them because I don't know what to do otherwise. So
we don't have cable in our house right now either, and that was mainly because when my wife and I were dating, I had cable and she didn't. And we stayed up till 1:30 in the morning to watch a show on insomnia when we both had to work the next day. And we were okay, wait a minute. We're that addicted. We can get into it that bad. This is just stupid. And so when we got married, when I moved in with her before we got married, we just dropped the cable, and we haven't had it. And now with Netflix and Hulu and everything else, I don't miss it. The Game of Thrones. The HBO shows, period, are probably what I miss the most, But Walking Dead, I got to wait a while, but I get to see it. I'm okay with that,
And you know what? I watched all of Breaking Bad in 2 weeks, watching it on Netflix. So, it's like cable seems like a moot point nowadays. But I think that's why streaming is becoming more popular. But anyways, I digress. CineFile, another CineFile article this week. Channel 7, which is a local station here in Detroit, announced that they reported that the Michigan Film Office approved incentives for another big movie franchise that I was a big fan of back in the day, Beverly Hills Cop 4.
Nice.
It's coming to Detroit. Eddie Murphy's on board. And I read what the idea of it is, and it's flipping the script. So now he's kind of comfortable in Beverly Hills, and he's coming back to Detroit
Nice.
to solve so he's got to get back into the groove of Detroit. So it's fantastic. I'm loving it. I'm so excited for it. I'm pumped because I love Eddie Murphy back in the day of Beverly Hills Cop, even though he did the third one, and it was about a theme park, and it was kind of... I'm just going to say, Eddie Murphy, it was okay, but we really loved, the two before that. So I'm really excited about it. What do you think, Beverly Hills Cop?
I love the first two, man. I would definitely watch a fourth one. I would definitely watch that. Going into it pretty. I'll reserve right now, but I would definitely go see it, and I would definitely have kind of high hopes for it. I kind of tend to like to go in with really low expectations of movies and be surprised, because if I go in
too excited, it's the best way to do it.
Yeah, if you go in the other way, you're going to be disappointed so many times,
Absolutely. And you got to see it as what it is, obviously you can't go into a Transformers movie expecting Shawshank Redemption.
No.
You're not going to get it.
Yeah.
But so another last CineFile article this week. Tim Burton's Batman film is celebrating its 25th anniversary, and Geek Tyrant, who is a fantastic website that does news type of stuff, but it's nerdy type, basically nerdy type articles. They pulled up some different things that I never knew about the original film, one of which is Robin Williams was originally offered the role of Joker when Jack Nicholson wasn't really sure if he was going to play. That would have really kind of, I don't know if that would have even worked.
I think it might have been pretty dangerous. Robin Williams can really just devour a scene, especially in '89. You know, I don't know.
And the two creepy characters that I have seen him play, he's hit out of the park, which was one in Insomnia.
Yeah, that was.
And the other one was some photo movie. I can't remember what it's called.
Yeah,
1 Hour Photo or something.
Yeah, where he worked in a photo booth, right? And
and he was a creeper, man. And so I think, maybe he would have done good. I don't know.
But '89, is he not to dig into his personal life, but in '89,
right.
Was he still doing a lot of cocaine? Because
if he was,
I'm not sure he could. I'm just saying, I'm not sure.
If anything, that would have helped the role. I mean, look at what people still say that he was doing it when he played Aladdin's genie.
Right, but I think you could have gone over the top with the Joker there, but I think going too far would have turned it into the comedy that the later ones turned into. You know what I mean?
Right.
I don't know. I love that first one. I really do. I love Nicholson's Joker. I did. You know. So,
yeah.
That would have been
I know. I don't know if I could deal without Jack Nicholson. I mean, Jack Nicholson he really personified the fun Joker in comic books, not the gritty one, which we saw later on.
Ledger.
Yeah, but he really personified the punching bag, the punching, gun and the, the fun Joker, that everyone liked, which is still fun. Like the Cesar Romero Joker, I just love. You know, it was kind of sad to see Eli. Was it Wallach? Is his name?
Yes.
Just passed away. Yeah, he was Mr. Freeze on the original 70s. Or is it was it 70s?
It was 60s. That was early or late 60s. So.
Yep. Holy crap! I'm young.
That's all right. I'm old, and it was still before my time, so it was good. But
so apparently, in the original script, also of Batman, Robin was included in the film. Robin and the Flying Graysons were introduced in the parade scene. You know, the parade scene at the end.
Yep.
And Joker actually shoots the trapeze artists, sending them to their death, and then kind of starting the whole Robin thing at the end of the film, where they could kind of play on. But it was eventually written out, which kind of interesting.
Yeah,
this is a really weird one. Kiefer Sutherland was offered the role of Dick Grayson when it was still in the script.
Wow. So he's probably able to play young enough at that point. He would have been older
from 24.
Well, he would have been an older Dick Grayson. I mean, he probably would have looked, 17, 18, 19 versus 12 to 16.
Yeah.
But I think that would have worked. And going back to the Robin Williams, I know I said I was nervous about it, but I don't think anybody, when they announced Michael Keaton was Batman, was like, "What?" You know what I mean? And he pulled it off. He did a good job in it. So. And
it kind of blew people's minds. The problem, and I always say this with Michael Keaton's Batman, is not Batman. He did Batman fantastically. What he didn't do was Bruce Wayne fantastically, because his Bruce Wayne was very nice, and it wasn't Christian Bale's Bruce Wayne, which is the it was basically his cover, which is I'm a rich, arrogant, philanderer, and he played more of a I'm kind of nice guy,
absent-minded more than anything.
Yeah, absent-minded, I mean, and which is great. I mean, I loved his performance. I will still always to this day. That's one of my favorite Batmans. But he just didn't pull off the Bruce Wayne. So in a perfect world, it's hard to pull off both, I think.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
Christian Bale did a pretty good job, even though I really wish he would have taken a lozenge because I really didn't like the talking like this.
Yeah. It's given us a lot of humor. I mean, there's a lot of funny
Yeah, that's
stuff
for sure. That's for sure. It's been joked about very, very frequently. Last but not least, everyone remembers the soundtrack from Batman because Prince did the Bat song or whatever it was called, and it was so cheesy and fun. But if you ever watch if you got to look it up on YouTube, if you ever watch the video for it, it's crazy and fun. But originally, Michael Jackson was asked to write and perform the songs for the movie, but he had to turn it down because he had concert commitments. But think of what that would have been like. Michael Jackson, Batman, like pairing, like the music would have been amazing.
Yeah. It would have been very poppy. It seems kind of at odds with Batman. You know, at odds with Batman. But hey, you know, it would have been pretty cool.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So that's CineFile for this week. Just a couple things that are in the news. Everybody go out and celebrate Batman's 25th anniversary by playing the original Batman. And then, of course, follow it up with the other Tim Burton Batman, which was the origins of the let's put as many villains together as possible, and then it just makes the whole movie horrible.
Yeah.
Because anytime you add more than one villain, I feel like, you know, it's not like more villains equal better film. I think it just kind of convolutes things. And if anything, that recent Spider-Man kind of proved that point. Yeah.
Yeah, it's hard to split the stories. You're having to deal with multiple stories, and I think the worst case of it actually was third X-Men movie, which had a bunch of. I mean, you got the Phoenix Saga, you got the Mutant Cure, you got all these great possible stories. If they would have explored any one of them in depth, it would have been a fantastic movie. But they mash them all together, and none of the stories get enough time to develop as a good story, I think, in my opinion.
Absolutely. Then they throw in Juggernaut and like all these random characters, which, you know, in my opinion, they could have done Juggernaut in his own film, which would have been a fantastic, you know, like you said, explore the Phoenix a little bit more. You know, they kind of just let that, you know, go. So I don't know. So that's CineFile for this week. I'm not going to do a versus for this week because I really couldn't think of one that. I usually try to find one that like fits with the guest, but I couldn't. I'm like maybe like Sasquatches versus Lumberjacks. I don't know. So versus Yetis. There you go. But we're just gonna skip that for this week. But I want to thank again John Harris, co-creator of Prolific Games, for coming on with us. Say hi to Bill for us, and anytime you guys want to come on the show and promote some upcoming games, we would love to have you. So
absolutely, we'll stay in touch. It's been fun. Thank you for having me. It's been great.
Yeah, no problem, man. And have a great rest of the night. And for all you fans watching, please tune into the Not So Cool Kids podcast, episode 47. We've got some great guests coming up. We've got Justine, who's Just Z Cosplay, coming up. She's a big cosplay artist. And then we've got, this one's really exciting, a LARPing panel coming up. So we're going to have a panel of people from all different realms of LARPing, people that create the things that you actually, the props and the stuff that you go out in the field with, the costuming. You've got people who are creating their own fan films and their own fan series, and then the people that are just out there playing LARPing and actually into it and really like love the culture and the community. that I build. So we're gonna have an awesome LARPing panel. So tune in. It's all about you guys. It's all about the fans. And if you guys have a person who you'd like to have come on the show as a guest, please let us know. And thanks again, John. Really appreciate it, man.
You're absolutely welcome. It was fantastic. It was a lot of fun. Thanks for having me.
All right, guys. See you later. Episode 46 out.